A few months ago, Nintendo announced their upcoming installment to the Hyrule Warriors series, Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. This game takes place in the past that Zelda visits in Tears of the Kingdom, following the events leading up to and during the Imprisoning War. This is all very reminiscent of the excitement prior to Age of Calamity's release. In fact, one of the first videos released on this channel was an Age of Calamity theory. I often find myself nostalgic for that time when we were all constantly getting trailers and theorizing about that game, and when thinking about it, I remembered my favorite Age of Calamity series, The Hero's Path by Monster Maze. In this series, he came up with a variety of potential gameplay scenarios that could take place in Age of Calamity. And while I am no Monster Maze, I thought it would be fun to try and make up some potential gameplay scenarios for Age of Imprisonment. I've tried to think of some levels that you wouldn't normally expect. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and subscribe as I share with you my potential gameplay scenarios for Age of Imprisonment. This idea is an idea that was inspired by the first level in the Gerudo Desert in Age of Calamity, specifically the one where the party is trying to get Urbosa to agree to pilot her divine beast. As many of you know, the first attack Ganondorf ever made against the citizens of Hyrule was at the edge of Gerudo Canyon. He overlooks the Great Plateau, flanked by his surrogate mothers and backed up by a band of Gerudo warriors. At his command, one of the warriors blows a horn, and a swarm of Molduga charge towards the Kingdom of Hyrule's capital. To emphasize how big of a deal this is, while Molduga are a big enough problem for people who only visit the desert, they are still just as bad of a threat to the Gerudo woman, the primary residents of the desert, and a group of warriors. The fact that Ganondorf managed to wrangle up this many Molduga is genuinely impressive. For a potential gameplay scenario, I'd like to see Ganondorf and his forces wrangle up in containing these Molduga, basically a boss gauntlet. For characters one could play as for this level, Ganondorf is an obvious candidate, as well as a generic Gerudo warrior. Maybe this game will have a Gerudo equivalent of Suga from Age of Calamity. Another potential option could be the Gerudo Sage. We still don't know much about her, and it's possible that she is still loyal to Ganondorf by this point in the story. As for enemies that could be fought in this level, aside from the Molduga, the desert could be littered with Lizalfos and Gibdos. After Zelda appears in the past, she remarks that the land before her is completely unlike the Hyrule she once knew. Confused as to who the man in the sealing chamber was, or why she was sent back to this time specifically, I find it possible that shortly after coming to the past, Zelda would ask for an escort to the Lost Woods, both to make sure the Master Sword is safe in this time period and to seek guidance from Fi. The princesses of the past have been well aware that the Master Sword does not strictly follow the laws of time, a fact that Zelda even mentions during Link's blessing ceremony. It's possible that she hopes that speaking to the sword, or even being near it, may give her a clue as to how to return to her time. As for players, you could go with the obvious, Zelda, Sonia, Rauru, but it may include Minoru or someone else entirely. As for enemies, the Lost Woods is already home to a sleuth of potential enemies. However, if you wanted to get creative, I would love to see the Skull Kids return for this level, playing tricks on our party to keep them lost. Age of Calamity had segments for each champion where we visited their homelands in order to request that they pilot their respective divine beasts. While we will likely have some sort of equivalent to this in Age of Imprisonment, I'm not really excited to see any of these segments except for the Goron Sages. Why? Because we know that at the time, he likely didn't live in Goron City, but the lost city of Gorondia. We hardly know anything about Gorondia other than in ancient times it was once the home to the Gorons, that it had a giant temple and was possibly used for mining. The main reason I want to see a level here is because I want to see this area more fleshed out. Similar to how in Age of Calamity, several towns from Breath of the Wild were shown in their pre-apocalyptic state. I imagine the lost city of Gorondia was essential to early Hyrule's economy, providing not only a stream of Zonite, but other precious gems that are then circulated through the kingdom. As for what the level would look like, I can't really say. It's hard for me to imagine the depths without the gloom infesting it. Back in Breath of the Wild, there was only one place in the game where you could find the name Zonai, the Zonai Ruins in Faron. While there were Zonai structures all across the map, there was no place that was as abundant in them as Faron. These sets of ruins in particular were a spot of interest at the time. At the time, we believed the Zonai were a savage and warlock tribe, and this area was like a proving ground, a combat gauntlet for the Zonai to go through, and at the end, reach the dragon head and pray to the goddess Hylia. We don't know if this theory still holds true in face of the new lore learned in Tears of the Kingdom, but if it does, it then presents an interesting scenario. Since Zelda is currently working to gain mastery over her recently discovered time powers, she may choose to go through this trial willingly, a way to prove her newly acquired skills to Rauru and Sonia. Enemies she could face here are Lozalfos, Wizrobes, and Moblins. This idea is a lot more abstract than the others, and likely won't appear in the game, but I thought it was a cool idea nonetheless. Minoru explains dragonification as losing oneself, and we know that if the timeline doesn't change, the game will end with Zelda turning herself into a dragon to restore the Master Sword. What if for this scenario, we play as Zelda in her mind, fighting off her memories, slowly destroying more and more of herself? She fights Dark Link-esque versions of her mother, the champions, King Rome, Sonia, and Rauru, each a memory that is being taken over by the dragon. The last enemy to appear is Link, and right before Link is about to vanish, he suddenly becomes clearer, and Zelda feels calm. She senses Link, drawing the Master Sword in the present, and comes to peace knowing Ganon's eventual defeat, marking the end of Age of Imprisonment. And there you have it, folks. 5 potential gameplay scenarios for Age of Imprisonment. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope it was interesting to listen to. I started making this video back when the Age of Calamity teaser first came out, and I really haven't been keeping up with news since then, so I apologize if anything I've said or shown is out of date. Let me know in the comments what gameplay scenarios you would like to see. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'm Majora, and I'll see you all later.